Good morning. This is DeProgram with Ted Rall and Jamarl Thomas. It's Monday, August 17th, 2026. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a full hour for you today, and we've worked out some formatics that we're going to introduce you to once people populate into the show. One of the things we've noticed is that not everyone's really here right at the very beginning. For those of you who are, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate you very much. Please make sure to put your questions, comments, etc. into the live stream if you're watching in the live stream, which is 9 Eastern to 10 Eastern, Monday through Friday. We are switching to a system which we think you guys will like. We're going to be not taking anything away. We're going to be adding something. So we're going to still maintain the Q&A shows, but instead of being Mondays and Wednesdays, we're going to be doing those Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So DeProgram is now 2 hours a day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 hour a day, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we'll explain all that for you. Waiting for Jamarl to come on. I assume he's talking to Sloboda or someone. Yeah. Do we have any word?
He says that he's on his way. He will be here shortly.
Okay, he's en route. Okay. All right, so we're going to talk about the Democratic war against Hasan Piker and people like him and what it all means. There's a very interesting and weird story out of the Pacific Ocean, where of all places, where Ecuadorian fishermen who are being bombed and murdered by unidentified white guys wearing uniforms without clear insignia, but who have American flag patches. They are bombing them with drones, following them with planes that are based out of an El Salvadorian military base. And they've killed at least 8 people. And the New York Times has done a deep dive investigation into what's going on. And we're going to try to figure out exactly who's murdering these Ecuadorian fishermen. Also, there's the story of Professor Jason Arday. He's the professor who committed suicide after he was accused of academic improprieties, including but not limited to plagiarism. And that's now there's calls for a public inquiry in the UK by at least 30,000 signatories, including a bunch of very famous and notable Brits. So a lot to talk about. Let's talk a little bit about, before we get into it, the YouTube situation. We've sorted out, and we wanted to sort of share how you can support the show if you want this show to keep going. All right, so we're going to put this up here. Let me take out. Okay, so here is what we're doing on YouTube. This does not apply to you Rumblers, okay? But basically the live show is, as I stated, now it's weekdays, 9 to 10 a.m. The guest slot is we're going to do from 12 on in the Q&A shows Mondays and Wednesdays. Fridays is member-only Q&A. So in other words, you can, if you're a member of the show, you can ask questions. Everyone else can just watch. Member-only episodes happen once a month to be announced. I think we're leaning towards doing that on like the last Thursday of each month in the evening for people who can't make it here in the morning. That's kind of like a bonus for you guys. And the 3 tiers on YouTube, which are tier 1 for $5, well, we're calling it $4.99. You get access. You can access the member-only videos and the Q&As, and you get loyalty badges and emotes. For $10 a month, you get to be tier 2. You get all the stuff I just mentioned in tier 1, but you also get your name listed in the outros, the ending credits of the show. You've probably noticed that if you stick around until 10 o'clock. Tier 3 for $20 a month, or $19.99 as we're calling it, all the aforementioned stuff, but you also get a call with the hosts. That's me and Jamarl and Robbie. The next one is going to be coming up 10 days from today, August 27th. That's a Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And that means basically it's just you guys and we just shoot the shit and talk. I hope that's clear to everybody. And if not, well, I apologize. It's my fault. Okay.
It's clear enough for me. And if I can understand it, everyone should be good.
So true. So true.
Yeah, and I just want to just thank everybody who's been jumping over and watching my YouTube channel. Seriously, it's been helping a ton. I appreciate it. It helps kind of plug the John-sized hole in my wallet. So thank y'all. And I do need a little bit of help on Rumble for the people who are so inclined. I need 32 unique chatters in a live stream between now and the end of the month. So if y'all would just follow me over on Rumble whenever I go live. Uh, if you
It's
would just,
Putin Bot Gaming is
yep,
the channel. So go to Rumble, search for one word, like no spaces, Putin Bot Gaming.
yep, and then just drop a poop emoji, whatever. If you can find a swastika, you can do that too. No, do as you will. I just need the engagement. It doesn't matter. Thank
Do
you.
your worst. Do your
Exactly.
best. Do your worst.
I will take it. I will take it all.
So okay, yes. So let's hit a few comments. There's Jamarl Thomas, belatedly at 9:06. Good morning, Jamarl. How are you?
Good, good morning. How you doing, man? I'm sorry. You
Good
do
morning.
Well, you're spending the extra time looking good. I'm just here in my slovenly T-shirt. Okay, a little bit of a lag there.
It's okay. It's okay. I have sex in a suit.
That
Oh, I'm
brings up
lagging?
FUSO's comment. How much for the OnlyFans level? It's like, well, it's not $1, FUSO. Okay, so
Right, right, right.
Manchild, thanks
We
for
have
the
more pride in
dollar.
respecting ourselves than the
The
dollar.
penny died. 99 cents is a lie. By the way, did you hear this thing before we get into the serious stuff about the nickel? So Donald Trump drove a stake through the penny. The penny is no more, right? And the reason was that the penny costs about, I think, 2.5 cents or 3 cents to make. So they said, well, it's stupid to make these things. So although the truth is, I mean, that's sort of pretending like the penny is only used once, right? I mean, coins are recirculated constantly, so even if it costs more than the face value of the coin to make, arguably it might still be worth it. I'm sure quarters cost more than a quarter to make. Anyway, now they're looking at the nickel, and like penny fans are saying that actually the cost differential on the nickel is bigger, and there's going to be more stress on nickels than now that pennies are disappearing. Nickels cost like 8.5 cents to make, so there's a 3 cent differential on those coins, and I'm like,
Well,
what's gonna happen? Are we all gonna just end up using Susan B. Anthony's or Sacagaweas or whatever they are now?
I mean, but I think your first point is right. The You're making coins for the public to use. It's not
Mhm.
about like this idea that the country should be run like a business. It's not a business. It's a country.
Right. Yeah, it's currency. I mean,
Yeah.
currency has its own. It's different. It's just not. I mean, it's just a weird way to understand it, right? Like, you're not really. I mean, I don't know. Like the
Yeah,
opposite
one
side
US
of this
dollar
is
is worth more than $1, so we should make dollars. It's like, okay.
right.
Do
It
it.
makes no sense. It's like stamps are the opposite, right? Like the postal service loves stamps because they make them, and a lot of them never get used. They're collected by
Mhm.
philatelists. They're or they're just not used. They sit in drawers forever. So they're making a service that they never have to provide. It's like healthcare.
Instead of making a service they never have to provide. Yeah,
I mean, you know
yeah,
what this whole currency thing reminds me of, Ted. And I know you've read this. You've read Gibbons.
I
Yeah, a
have.
lot of people don't realize this. You know, about the last 120 years that the Roman Empire in the West existed, they would not accept their minted coins because they weren't worth enough. So the denarii, you cannot pay your taxes if you're a Roman. You cannot pay your taxes using the currency issued by the state because it's so debased. You had to pay your taxes using older denarii from like 100 years before because they were more pure with gold and silver than what the government was printing, and that's one of the reasons why the barbarians just rebelled is because the Roman state kept paying the mercenaries with useless coins. Like, well, if we have all the swords and you're giving us trash, we're going to remind you
Yeah.
why we're here in the first
We
place.
have the metal that's actually worth something with a
Yes,
sharp
yes,
edge.
they have
yeah,
steel.
swords. Yeah.
That's what we're doing here. This is national suicide in slow motion, and people do not realize how bad this is. They
It's
don't
really
get it.
strange. It's very. I mean, look, I don't understand even. I know this is kind of tangentially related, but I think it's fucked up that there are now numerous restaurants, particularly in cities like New York and LA, where you cannot pay in cash. I mean, cash is legal for all transactions. What is it? Public and private. I mean, it should be
Yeah,
against the law to refuse cash.
I thought it was against the law to refuse cash.
I thought it was too, and I guess I don't know if that's true or not.
That's
But
some
like,
kind of legal tender. I can pay
there's
my
store,
bill with
there's
this.
stores in there's restaurants in like LaGuardia and JFK airports that do not accept cash, and you can see why they would do that because it
Well,
avoids
it's the airport though. The
it
airport is not
avoids.
really. It's like nebulous territory. I thought.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. So it's like I used to always tell my kid, like, an airport is a fascist state. No jokes, no First Amendment. Like, don't make jokes about bombs. Shut the fuck up. Flat affect. It's 1934. You're in Berlin. Um, Okay, so as I was explaining to everyone right before you came on, we're going to talk. We have the whole centrist Democrats going after Hasan Piker. We've got this really crazy story about the Ecuadorian fishermen getting blown up by unidentified gringos. And Jason Arday, I have no preference into what order we do this. So what do you think? What should we do first?
The CIA murdering those people in the Galapagos and then trying to hide the fact that they murdered the people in the Galapagos. Just an astonishing story. And you would think that a government that's run under laws would respond to that story a bit more aggressively as opposed to oh, that's interesting. The CIA murdered a bunch of people in Ecuador and covered it up, which is wild. I mean, they were effectively running some kind of spy operation that they didn't want anybody to know about. And this is separate from us or Trump murdering fishermen in the Caribbean. But both were effectively taking place. And there was no consequences for either. None for either. Do you think there will be consequences now that the story has been outed? And give me your just take on in general on the story, if you want to give a breakdown.
I don't think there's going to be consequences because it was a weekend news dump. So it looks to me like the New York Times had reporters who did yeoman's work. They went out there, they found out they talked to these fishermen. The story's been going on for a while, and we do need to get into roll up our sleeves and explain it to people here.
Yeah.
But because it was a weekend news dump, that broadcasts, I'm sure to you as it does to me, that the New York Times decided to do a dutiful release, but they're not going to editorialize about it. They're not going to pressure the powers that be, because it makes them nervous. I mean, the New York Times has had very, very close ties to the CIA for decades, and they tend not to like to ruffle those feathers. And even though every now and then, like, they'll publish the Pentagon Papers or they'll publish the Snowden accusations, even though they didn't get, they didn't respond to Snowden's phone calls when he called them to give them the story. You'll also get situations like this where, like, well, we released the story. They can tell their reporters who might be upset about it, and that's true. Of course, I have a theory about news dumps, which is Friday afternoon news dump is not what it used to be, because Saturday and Sunday are big days on the internet now, and nobody's getting their news from those dead trees anymore. So I think they're just miscalculating. And if people care about it, it could be a big deal. My mom would say they're brown and they're poor, and no one cares about the victims. But basically, yeah, what the accusation here is that basically the Ecuadorian fishermen, and this is the part, it's very confusing to me. We already know that Ecuadorian fishermen and fishermen from Venezuela have been blown up. Over 221, at least, that we know of, have been killed in this Trump campaign to supposedly go after drug traffickers, right? Never mind that none of these drugs are actually headed to the United States. And certainly you're not allowed to blow up drug smugglers. It's not.
We don't even know if they're drug smugglers. We
We
don't know
don't
what they
even
are.
know. Alleged drug smugglers, right?
Yeah.
And we know that a bunch of them were not involved in the drug trade. But even if they were, you're not allowed to do that. You have to intercept them and arrest them and give them due process. But anyway, the point is they've been assassinating these people in the middle of the ocean. And I don't understand why they would need a supplemental program to do that if they're already announcing and releasing videos on Truth Social, bragging about it. We already know they're doing it. It's not like it's a secret. So this seems to be something different or supplemental, or maybe they're doing it. They don't want people to know the full scale of it, that they're killing far more than hundreds. Maybe this is thousands of people, but I also don't know why the CIA would have uniforms with American flag patches on them. I mean, this sounds kind of like ICE, right? It's not ICE, but it's ICE-like behavior. The most interesting thing that the Times dug up was they did tracking of this plane, the surveillance plane that repeatedly tracked these fishermen at sea. They know the route that it followed. And this plane was based at a Salvadorian military base. We know that the Trump administration's been working very closely with the right-wing government in El Salvador. You know, that's where CICOT is, the gulag, where we send migrants to and where they get tortured. So we know that El Salvador has been a dumping ground for the Trump administration for the people that they deem to be undesirables. I totally believe the Times story. I totally believe these fishermen. So, I mean, you're saying it's the CIA. It sounds like it's the CIA for sure, or something like that. Is it possible? I mean, does it matter which three-letter agency we're talking about? I mean, these are, look, non-government entities don't fly out of allied military bases. So clearly this is a U.S. government entity. And according to the Times, they obtained recordings of air traffic control talking to the pilots of the plane, and that they spoke English with American accents.
Right.
So they're Americans, right? And they obviously feel like they can operate with impunity. I mean, it's really disturbing.
It's grotesque. I mean, we need to really put this in context. When I often ask the question about, are we as a society culpable for the things that our government does? And that question, I would argue, makes people uncomfortable, but it's an operative question. We are watching our government murder people without any sort of due process. These people, in many cases, are fishermen. In some cases, weren't even going in the direction of the United States, and yet they were murdered. And the only story that really the press took issue with was the double tap, which is weird to me because it's like, well, you can hit them once and murder them, but if you hit them twice, that's too far. Okay, well, that's like the premise of it.
Well, it's rude. It's rude.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Right. It's impolite.
It's not sporty. It's not sporty.
You got to kill them the first go. You can't, if you have to hit them twice, that's impolite. That's a foul. Okay, that's nonsense. And even, I know we're laughing about it, but the reality of it is our government is doing grotesque things. And it's doing grotesque things of terrorism.
And the double tap is gross because it targets, good Samaritans and first responders.
But all of it's gross.
Yeah.
All of it's gross.
All of it. Agreed.
Murdering rando fishermen without any due process, meaning we have no idea who these people are.
Right. Yeah, I don't care. I don't care if it's like if it's a huge ship that's like the USS Tony Montana, and you can see the piles of coke wafting off the back. It's not legal, right? You're not allowed to do that.
You stop the boat if you're that sure that the boat is carrying cocaine,
right, to
the U.S.
Right.
But they don't do that because they know what they're saying is nonsense. Meaning it's better to murder them than make sure they can't talk after the fact, which is why they did the double tap, I suspect.
And nobody's going to care about them, and they know the government.
And nobody's going to care.
Ecuador is a mess right now. No thanks to the U.S. They're not in any position to. Not that they were ever. I mean, it's a poor country. They were never going to be able to raise hell at the UN. What can they do, right? That's basically it.
It's that part. It's the criminal component of this that bugs me the most. I mean, and we're doing it all around
the
world.
impunity.
What we're doing in Cuba right now is criminal. What we did in Venezuela is criminal. I mean,
what's the real motivation here, Jamarl? I mean, okay, so what are they actually trying to do? Like, what is the point of this? Like, seriously, like from their point of view, at Langley or wherever they're planning this stuff. What's I don't know. I mean, is this drug war shit? What is it really?
No. I don't think it has anything to do with drugs. I think it's about exerting control over South America and looking for a pretext to do it.
So you think it's more like sort of, it's a shot across the bow. It's a don't fuck with us. We're Big Mac daddies. We're scary as shit. What is it?
No, I don't think that. I mean, I think South America already knows that the United States are full of murderers and psychopaths, evil people willing to do evil things. I think they know that. I think most of the world knows that. Yeah. I think the U.S. is looking to exert control. Whether it's going after Cuba, whether it's going after Venezuela, whether it's going after apparently murdering fishermen in Ecuador, or for that matter, even Brazil. If you think about it, the South America has been taken over by the right wing in most of these locations. I mean, even in Colombia, Gustavo Petro, he lost, or basically the person who was running against the right in that election lost, which is another country that is now given allegiance to Israel. Right? Like out of the blue, we give our allegiance to Israel. And if you look at Brazil, Lula is.
Does Israel come to you in dreams, Jamarl?
No, no, I don't need anybody grabbing my ass in my dreams.
Southern France comes to me in dreams, and fresh croissants in the morning. But yeah, not Israel.
Dream. That's a good dream. Croissant or a croque monsieur with a cappuccino with the Eiffel Tower.
I'm a croque madame guy. I like the egg on top.
Do you?
I do.
Okay, we're snobs right now.
Obviously, we're hungry this morning.
Yeah. Well, it's early in the morning, and that's a damn good sandwich, and food in France can be good.
I just like coffee. Listen, I'm telling y'all, I'm a coffee addict. Always drinking coffee.
Ask Jeff where the fuck is our free coffee.
I have. He was traveling last week, so I'm giving him a pass. As I told him, I said, no, listen, we will tell people about your super black massive coffee.
Yeah.
But we need to test it first.
That's true. We'll have even the tea drinkers drinking it, but we need to know for ourselves that it's good.
100%.
If it sucks, we're not going to endorse it. If it blows, if it's like acrid, like early Pete's or early Starbucks, like
yeah, Pete's, if it sucks, I'm not going to.
Pete's coffee will eat a hole through your cup. It's awesome.
it's like the acid from the alien in Aliens.
Oh,
that
true
goes
story.
Through the floor. Yeah.
True story, and I'll go away. Back when in Pensacola, before I moved here to Montana, I worked in the ER there at Baptist Hospital. And so
please don't say this story involves coffee. That's terrifying.
It does involve coffee.
Oh,
No, so I worked a night shift, and so it'd be a 12 to 14-hour shift depending on what was going on. And so L&D, they were in delivery. They would shut down the waiting rooms, but they had these self-serve coffee machines, but they were not serviced during the weekend. So where I'm going at with this, if you needed just pure tar just to get you through a rough day, you could just go up there to labor and delivery, pour the stuff into a cup. It just came out like syrup. It was awesome. And then you just slam it down. It would wire you up like 4
You will
hours.
not be 50 years old, Robbie. You're going to die. That's like horrible.
That is terrifying.
That
is terrifying.
Well, that is like, okay, so that, while we're on that track, you guys remember the really famous torts case about the lady who sued McDonald's for burning herself with the coffee being too hot.
Insane.
And the right made this, and like corporate America was like, this is a classic example of like lawyers gone wild and like poor innocent companies, like they're being picked on and shaken down by greedy, ambulance chasing assholes. And then, I know some people know this story, but like when I wanted to know what the case was, I read the case, right? Yeah. And basically what really happened was that the coffee was so hot that it melted. She didn't spill it. Okay. She had it between her legs while she was driving away from the drive-through. It melted through the container, right? That's how hot it was. And then, and there's no other way to put it, it caused so much damage that she required reconstructive surgery to her labia so that she could function normally down there. Now, the thing is, it gets worse. So when she sued, she originally asked McDonald's for the $800 deductible of her medical insurance for the cost of the reconstructive surgery. McDonald's said, sit and spin, we're not paying, right? So she got pissed and she sued. When they did discovery, they found that there were thousands and thousands of cases a year, just like this. And here's the kicker. The reason why was the coffee so damn hot. The coffee in a normal urn at a typical restaurant ranges from 115 to 135 degrees, right? This coffee was 185, almost boiling. Boiling water is 212. And it's like, so why'd they do it? The kicker is McDonald's they saved money by never cleaning the urns. They thought that if the coffee was hot enough, the boiling would boil away all the bacteria and as well as your vagina. And
so
yeah,
awesome.
What a practical solution. Oh, how do we not think of things? Well, just make the water real hot. People want hot coffee anyway. Just make it hot.
So the jury, Robbie, you'd like this. The jury had quite a number of Christians on the jury, and they decided that McDonald's would have to tithe, to pay for their sins. So they charged them, I believe it was 1% of all global revenues for one day, and that ended up and which was many tens of millions of dollars. The award was later knocked down on appeal, but that's the basis.
Well, it shouldn't have been knocked down.
No,
I mean, she had to get her labia.
It should have been higher.
Yeah, I mean, like she literally had to get surgery for it.
And she's suing on behalf. The other thing is, right, like they should also pay for all the people who didn't sue, right?
Well, also that's a 9% discount. The tithe is 10%.
Right. I know. I know.
Right.
No, I'm serious. And
no, the first fruit. So before taxes, before expenses, anything. So the gross 10%. That's your tithe.
I guess the atheists on the jury like knocked it down, but
well, I mean, the fact that a 9% discount was not enough for McDonald's,
right,
shows you that the Christians in this case, to quote Ted, would have been better served to pay the tithe.
Agreed.
Imagine having to go to the doctor and showing them my penis because coffee was too hot.
No, I mean she was not pleased, and she had reason. And all she wanted, she had insurance. She just wanted them to cover. She was a working class lady. She just wanted them to cover the deductible. That's all she wanted.
Put it this way: my mom asked my dad to pay for the babysitter, and he was like, "I don't want to pay for the babysitter. I don't want to do that." Blah blah blah. She took him to court. And he ends up having to pay more money as a result.
I like it when that happens. Yeah, this is what you get. Fuck around and find out, right? Like, yeah.
They didn't believe she'd do it, and she did it. Good for her.
Totally.
Good for her. I hope she has a beautiful labia from here on out.
Shiny, sparkly, with all the mod cons.
Yeah, Mackinac says Robbie would have appealed the $1 million award. I would have. It's too low.
I agree. I thought it was too low too. But apparently, I mean, I guess there were some corporatists, some Haley Stevens type ladies on the jury who were like, like feeling sorry for McDonald's.
By the way,
or something.
Speaking of lawsuits, did you see Christian Cinemas?
Yes.
That is wild.
Yes, let's talk about that. So,
and that came out in court, which, man,
Christian Cinema is a minx, man. This is by the way this is the Ted and Jamarl theory of crazy women being hot. Like every time, I mean, she's not like objectively like a physically attractive, or she's not ugly, but she's like a very ordinary looking woman, right? And then, but when I read these stories, I'm like, wow, she's wild and crazy. Whoa! And then it's like. I love the fact I have to admit I don't understand the state law under which he was sued. That basically she was sued. It's basically it's almost like tortious interference with contract, right? Like if you're a homewrecker, you can be sued.
Sued for that.
Yeah.
In Arizona. How weird is that?
Right. Like basically if you're the other I fucked a married woman. I remember justifying it to myself thinking, hey, it's not my oath. I didn't promise anything and didn't get in front of my church and my community and tell everyone I was going to be faithful. That's you. That's on you, right? So,
I too have fucked a married woman, and I didn't really justify it in the beginning because I didn't realize the way she sales pitched it to me because I was much younger. She sales pitched it, right? It's like take me out to dinner or to lunch, explain things. Hey, I'm attracted to you. I think you're real nice. She was very cerebral about it. I have a husband, but we're not really together. We're not really talking to each other and blah, blah, blah. Nonsense. She lied through her teeth. She lied through her teeth.
He kind of knows. It's kind of okay.
Yeah. No, it wasn't okay. Mm-hmm. He found out after the fact he wasn't happy. It didn't affect her point of view because he had cheated before.
At least he didn't sue you.
Yeah, it was her getting back at him in a sense. And by the way, ultimately one of the best relationships of my life, even though because there were no responsibilities. Everybody knew the rules.
Yeah. Well, my rule to myself that made me feel better about myself, looking back, total sophistry was, I never would call her. If she wanted to get together and do anything, she called me, and I would if I was free, respond. But basically it was kind of like, I'm not pushing her. I'm not going to like contribute to fucking up her marriage. But hey, if she calls me here, my penis is right here. You know, I mean,
weirdly enough, her marriage is much stronger today than it was back then. They apparently resolved their issues. She even apologized to me like I was a child. It was like, dude, I'm a fucking adult.
For what? For the husband giving you a hard time, or
no,
did the husband call you?
From her point of view, she took advantage. But again, this was always nonsense. Mm-hmm. We were only like 7 years apart. She's acting like we were 20 years apart.
Oh God, that's hilarious.
Yeah. And it's like, dude, why is this an issue? And age always was an issue. It was like, oh, I'm, taking advantage of some young child. And blah, blah, blah.
Jesus Christ.
Dude, I'm like,
really?
27. I'm like 30. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Ridiculous. Okay, we have some comments to get to, gentlemen. Okay. FPSO, the sailors of the USS Lincoln, thanks for bringing that up, are so weak and demoralized they can't even do gay stuff. For the dollar.
Oh, that's so wrong.
I doubt that's true. I'm sure they're able to if they can find any room, right? I mean, 5,000 sailors on that thing.
Well, all of them are hopped up on testosterone. Right. War fighters hopped up on testosterone, not able to get their tampons.
They don't even have water, right? They literally don't have water to drink.
Do you know why, though? So the reporting came out over the weekend that Iran had hit in the first opening days, like basically within the first day of the war, Iran hit Bahrain and destroyed it. That base in Bahrain was effectively a logistics hub for the United States to get the things that they require, which meant that the U.S. had to go 2,200 miles for replacements. So basically, Diego Garcia, the London base, and the U.S. wasn't even allowed to use that base in the very beginning of it. So basically, the reason the food was spoiled is because it had to be transported so far to even get to the ship that by the time it got to the ship, the food had basically spoiled. So they were limited in the things that they could effectively get from the standpoint of food or supplies because they were thousands and thousands of miles away. Iran.
And ships move slowly.
Yeah. That's amazing. Meaning it wasn't just...
By the way, that sort of goes to sort of a big Pentagon thing, right? Like, I mean, do you remember like 10 years ago when the Pentagon this was under Trump 1, they said, we're going to build a lot more ships. We're going to do a lot. We want to expand the Navy. And there were critics in the military and analysts who said, like, the wars of the future are not going to be fought using, these giant naval vessels. And this kind of goes to confirm that. I mean, like the foreign bases, these floating aircraft, these aircraft carriers. I mean, this is a 20th century model for a 21st century war world. I mean, it's
vulnerable. It is extraordinarily vulnerable. If Iran ate its Wheaties and launch, I don't know, a swarm of hypersonic missiles at that ship, would that ship be able to survive?
Game over.
Hell no.
Our guys are sitting ducks there.
They're sitting ducks. Yeah. No bullshit. I had Colonel Wilkerson on the show, and Master Sergeant Fritz and I had a disagreement on whether or not Iran can knock down one of those aircraft carriers. And Wilkerson told him, yes, they can. They just don't.
Right.
They just don't. They don't want to escalate the war to that level. But could they do it? A swarm of missiles and drones, etc. Let's say you send 20 out, all directly aimed at the ship going at hypersonic speeds. That ship is toast.
And that could happen. There's some indications that the Iranians are looking to escalate now. But who knows? Thank you very much, McCadden, for becoming a monthly supporter of DeProgram. We appreciate you. We need more monthly supporters. Just a reminder for people who are, I'm going to put this up again. Oh, did I already lose this? Did I really? Okay. Well, anyway, I'll just read it. But basically, tier 1 member on YouTube, $5 a month. You get member-only videos, and access to the Q&A. Tier 2, you get all that stuff, plus you get your name in the outro at the end of the show. Tier 3, for $20 a month, you get that stuff, plus a monthly personal hangout with Jamarl and I. So the subscribers are definitely going to be the future of the show. They're going to make this show viable. I mean, it's not like we're making no money, but we're definitely not nowhere near making enough money in order to make this viable. So we appreciate anything you can do. More comments. Phileas Fob. U.S. leftists compare U.S. Congress to foreign parliamentary systems. I get the basic differences between the US and other Western systems, but don't get the core difference being emphasized. Please explain.
What do you mean? Because we have the Senate?
No, I think, well, he's not being specific. I mean, for me, when I talk about like the how a parliamentary system is in many ways superior, it's about the multi-party aspect of it. I mean, in the United States, you only have two parties, which is not enough to represent, 330 million diverse people. And those parties are inadequate, and like, over half the population, their ideologies are not represented at all by these two parties. And so that, to me, I mean, do you have anything to add to that?
No, it's big. I mean, if you think about it, like, if I'm not mistaken, Germany, if you had like 5%, it has to be in parliament in order to represent that particular part of the demographic. Like, say, for example, you have Greens, the Greens represent, I don't know, 4 or 5%. Okay, well, they have to be represented in parliament because that's part of the population. That's not the way it works here. I mean, you get Democrats, you get Republicans, and that's basically what you get. And it's just this game to ensure that the two political parties are the ones that have the lion's share of chance of getting in office, not to mention the money required to create a party. In London, Nigel Farage created the party almost out of thin air overnight, and the thing started taking over conservative politics. Can you really see something like that happen in the United States? The Jamarl Thomas party comes to fruition. Okay, how much money is it going to take for Jamarl Thomas to make a Jamarl Thomas party, right? How do you get
You're going to have to sue McDonald's,
They have to burn my penis with coffee.
They do.
Oh my God.
And you have to hope they don't appeal. So a little bit of breaking news. Speaking of torts, E. Jean Carroll just won a victory in the U.S. Supreme Court. She will not have to return the $5.6 million that she won in her civil suit against Donald Trump, which is already in her hot little hands. So that's it. Game over, Donald. You lose.
He can afford it. He's making billions on the presidency.
I mean, as we talked about, it is a weird case. It does make me uncomfortable that you can be sued for something that may or may not have happened 30 years previous, for which there are no witnesses. I mean, it's very no evidence. It's weird.
Evidence. I mean, look, it's not impossible that Trump did it. That's not really the argument that I'm making.
Sure. But that shouldn't be the standard either.
Yeah, right. But that's right. That's not the standard, right? It's a court. I was always weird with this case because it's like, as much as I despise Trump, this looks very dodgy. How do you validate that this happened to the point where you're suing this guy for millions of dollars? I mean, that's terrifying. I can say Ted Rall grabbed my ass when he was at Spoonin. Right?
Yeah, and that's pretty recent.
Yeah, that's pretty recent. How does Ted Rall defend against that?
Yeah, Ted Rall grabbed your ass, when during the Clinton administration. Like, really? No, it's true. Dead Meme Club, thanks for the $10. So we're gonna bomb Oman now. You get a bomb, and you get a bomb, and you get a bomb. Donald Winfrey, you get a bomb, and you get a bomb.
He threatened Oman, but I don't know if he's gonna bomb them. I mean, he threatened.
Oman is a U.S. ally. There's no way we're bombing Oman.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Israel bombed Qatar.
Well, that's true. All right, so let's see. Phileas Fob, no tampons on the USS Lincoln. There goes the gay. There goes the gay sex. You just shove some paper towels in there. Man-child,
that's rough.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that's rough. I mean,
rough. Literally rough.
Do they have paper towels? We don't know.
Oh, that's
we
a good
don't know
point.
if they have paper towels. Maybe I'll get a hamster.
Maybe they were all destroyed. Yeah. That was a gerbil, right? That was the story.
Pick one. Pick the rodent of your choice. Make do with what you got.
That's one of the most. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, there you are. I mean, you're Richard Gere, and you're really good looking, and everyone wants to fuck you, but you have to live your entire life with this ridiculous, isn't true, cannot be true rumor your entire life, and like people are like, oh, did you hear? It's like what? It's such an stupid urban legend.
Rich people and weird stuff.
It's like, first of all, I'm like, have you ever seen a gerbil? Do you know what they're like? Like, I mean, I've held gerbils.
Shoot his ass, basically.
Oh yeah. They're not going. They don't go gently into that good night. Yeah. No, I mean, they're chompy. They're gnawty. Man-child, thanks. How about Trump reducing the Korean War games because Korea didn't help him hold his dick whilst
Yes.
jizzing on Iran.
Yes. Did you see that tweet?
I did see that.
Just outrageous, weird, bizarre tweet. It's like, hey, I'm Trump. I was with Kim Jong-un. He hasn't necessarily fired any missiles. So I'm not really for the military joint exercises with South Korea. But
So
South Korea
what?
tweeted off when I asked them about it. So I don't really like the fact that they're doing the military exercises. It's like, okay, how weird is that statement? And then he makes a point of saying, these things may be related. I'm basically saying.
Our presidents are children. And it's not just Trump, right? I mean, how many times, George W. Bush with his stupid freedom fries because France wouldn't let him fly planes over their airspace to bomb Iraq. And like we're always mad when our allies, don't help us murder people. And usually they do help us.
Here's the thing. I think it's just another lie. The reason why Trump is reducing the war games is because we don't have the munitions for the war games.
That's the other interesting part.
That's what it is.
That's correct.
Okay, listen, South Korea has no ability to project anything short of economic power outside of its borders. It can't. It's not a military power. It's an economic hub. It can't do it. So to think that South Korea is going to go help us fight Iran is insane. The common
They would be
denominator
useless. Look at the map.
The common denominator is we do not have the munitions to do the war games. That's what it is.
Because he didn't say to stop them. He's a president. He could stop the war games if he wanted to stop them. This idea that, they've moved so far along, so I'm powerless to do anything about it. Nonsense. What he's saying, he's reducing the war games, which goes to your point, Robbie. You might have expended all the armaments that you would typically expend, be it Iran or be it Ukraine, and you can't afford to expend them in the war games.
I have to admit, I never anticipated that of all things, the United States government would run out of missiles and bombs. Of all things,
running out of burgers.
Yeah.
Like, we're out of hamburgers today. Really?
Having no masks when COVID happened, that didn't surprise me in the least. But okay. So Marjorie Taylor Greene says that the Trump administration is talking about dropping nukes on Iran.
Yes,
if America drops nukes, what should the American people do about it? Overthrow their government, put their government and everyone responsible on trial, appeal to the UN and apologize to the Iranians and offer reparations and promise never to do anything like this again. I mean, I can't think about what else. I mean, we won't do those things, but we would have. We should.
They should be hung back and throat.
Yeah.
Each and every one of them. I mean, if for fuck's sake,
send them to Nuremberg.
Yes. I mean, how the United States is acting like Hitler.
Yeah.
I mean, this idea that you can flagrantly overthrow countries or flagrantly go into countries and knock this over, knock that over, and there's not supposed to be consequences. But there were consequences. They went too far to the point where they effectively destroyed their state. Mm-hmm. I'm saying the U.S. is murdering people in South America, murdering people in Iran. Who else knows where it goes? We're in war now in regards to Ukraine that we don't necessarily want to acknowledge that we're involved in. This is outrageous behavior. And then to extend that by saying, we started a war of aggression, and now we're going to drop a nuke because we can't necessarily win it with conventional force.
Well, I've been worried about this all along. With an unstable figure like Donald Trump. I mean, because there is a way out. I mean, if I were having beers with him, and I guess he'd be having an O'Doul's, I would say, like, Donald, you know what the right thing to do is here. You've declared bankruptcy many times. This is one of those times. You've got to cut. You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. You got to fold, okay? Like you're done. The Iranians will let you fold. You have to fold, and then and live to fight another day, maybe. But you gotta let it go.
I think that was true a month ago. I don't know, but now, I mean, they would put it this way: if Donald Trump fulfilled the memorandum of understanding, they'd let him out.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Fulfill it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
From Iran's point of view, they're looking at pushing the U.S. out of the Middle East. Period.
Yeah. Right. No,
Like
they'd be doing us a favor, by the way, but Okay, we should talk about Hasan Piker and Jason
Now, I
Arday.
got to be honest with you. I know who Hasan Piker is. I haven't necessarily seen the story, though. Explain what happened with the story.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I know who Hasan Piker is. Full disclosure, I've never once watched one of his streams, so
Same
I've
here.
only seen little excerpts. I don't really watch that kind of thing, and I'm not on Twitch, right?
Same here.
It's been
I
suggested
don't. I got
to
to be
us
honest. I don't quite get the content. Like,
we
I
should
don't
be
get.
on Twitch, but we're not.
But I don't quite get how. I've seen people do shows where it's like a show about nothing. Yet it works, and that's the way Hasan Piker's show feel to me. It's like, okay, but what is this about? It's
Yeah,
basically
it's about a vibe. I mean, it's a hangout. You
yeah.
basically, you go on. It's not like this show where you have specific topics that you're planning to hit, or if there are, it's not something that you let know. You kind of free associate. You just go in there and you just talk, and it's
Just
kind
hang
of like
out.
a Donald Trump campaign rally, right? Like you just go run off at the mouth and keep the needle moving, and you
Now,
hang
I love
out.
it's hard to the left. He's brutal towards Israel. Thank God for him on that one. And he often shows up at these campaign events of lefties. And
Yeah,
he's
that's right, and
on the
that's
brink.
the crux here. So you have corporate Democrats are trying to basically I love the fact that Haley Stevens, who lost,
Just
and normally when you lose in a situation like this, you lick your wounds and you disappear. But here she is, like basically still going after the person who defeated her in her own party, right? And she can't even say that like she lost to a guy who's a democratic socialist. El Sayed is not a DSAer, right?
right.
He's just another Democrat. He's a
By
progressive
the way, he
Democrat.
said as much.
Yeah, he said as much. And he's not a member, never was. He said, I'm not a democratic socialist, I'm a capitalist. Anyway, the point is, so she's still going after him. And basically, this is the quote. She was on Fox News. Well, look, you certainly make sense to get rid of this Hasan Piker affiliation. I'm calling for that. I've continued to call on that. God, she's an idiot. But I mean, so this is one of those things that, you see over and over again, particularly conservatives don't do this. You don't say like, you don't see people within the right saying like, you have to disavow that person. You have to disavow MTG, or you have to disavow.
Are you
so-and-so.
crazy?
Like
That
who?
happens all the time.
Maybe I'm not paying attention.
That happened. That
You're
happened
right.
that happened all the time. Oh yes. I mean, there were calls from the corporate Republicans for, especially after Tucker had Nick Fuentes on.
Oh, right. I
I mean,
forgot about Nick
That's when the
Fuentes.
backlash happened. That's when
Yes,
all
you're right.
all the corporate Republicans came out, and that's one of the reasons why TPUSA was under such pressure under Charlie Kirk to cancel Tucker Carlson, because Tucker Carlson dared punch to his right against Trump. So don't sit here and say that this never happens
You're
on
right.
the right. It
You're
100%
totally
does.
right. Well, okay, obviously I just haven't been paying attention to that as much as what happens on my side. But I got to say, so this is a Sister Souljah tactic, right? Everyone remembers Sister Souljah, the musician in 1992. And inexplicably, Bill Clinton basically found it necessary, even though she wasn't campaigning for him or anything, to criticize her for being like, too anti-cop and stuff. And basically he went after her. I mean, it hurt her career. She did ultimately come back, and I think now she's all the stronger for it in the long run. But it kind of sucked. It was an ugly spectacle. It's like basically he should have just shut the fuck up. And in this case, I mean, I think it's a mug's game to allow your side to be split up from other people. When there's like like Ted, you have to disavow Jamarl, or Ted, you have to disavow Robbie. It's like, and it's kind of like, no, I'm not good. And like, even if I privately thought that something that like my ally said was wrong, but if I admit that in public, it weakens me. Right? It makes me look like a puss. It means that I'm vulnerable. I'm breaking up my alliance. It's like George McGovern in the Eagleton affair. right? Like Thomas Eagleton was his running mate in the summer of 1972 to run against Richard Nixon. It came out that Thomas Eagleton, this shows how old the story is, had seen a psychiatrist, can you imagine, and had even gotten electroshock treatment 6 years earlier in the 1960s. And those records were stolen by Nixon's like scumbag staff, and released to the newspapers. And instead of saying, "How are you stealing medical records? How is that okay?" They called on Eagleton to step aside. Sure, I mean, look, McGovern was going to lose to Nixon anyway, but he destroyed his credibility, and he came off as this World War II fighter pilot came off as a pussy because he cut Eagleton loose and ended up appointing Shriver to replace him. It's a sucker's game. You just don't do that.
I have a question for y'all.
They're not on the same side. That's the rub.
Right.
Haley, she obviously doesn't consider El Sayed a Democrat.
Right.
And she's obviously still salty.
She's the enemy.
In which case she goes on to Fox News.
Yeah.
Fox fucking News.
Right. Right. Yeah. Why are you over there? If you're not doing anything other than campaigning for Saeed, shut the fuck up.
And she trashes him.
Right.
Now, you asked this question before. Does the Democratic Party help Saeed, or do they put a knife in him? And which one is the party willing to do? Meaning, are they willing to lose a Senate seat in order to?
Looks like they're willing to let him go down.
Well, she certainly is. Kamala Harris maybe less so.
Yeah.
Meaning there may be a split in the political branch. She's salty, obviously, right?
Right.
Like this idea of, my own political priorities matter less than the political party, or for that matter, the country. Obviously, she doesn't ascribe to that. And she's apparently willing to lose the Senate seat in order to make the point of, quote, I would have won if it was me that was running, as opposed to El Sayed, that bastard, lost the Senate seat, as opposed to her going on Fox News trying to damage his campaign. Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, there may be wings of the party that is willing to reach out to Saeed.
Obviously, the party.
He had a conversation. Right? He had a conversation with Obama. He had a conversation with Chuck Schumer, but I don't see them campaigning for him.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe that's still yet to come. It's August. It's the dog days. We're not there, but
yeah, we'll see. I mean, we'll see if people campaign for him.
After Labor Day, we will know what we know. Yeah.
Well, and people campaign for him. The left can't bitch about the fact that they're campaigning for him either.
No. I mean, like the left has to say, like, Obama might be a warmongering corporatist, but you have to welcome his support. Yes.
Yeah. Especially if your candidate is not moving to Obama's position, he's maintaining himself, and they're moving to his.
And Saeed is vulnerable. I mean, he only won by 1.5 points in a race that, by the way, I'm kind of mad at myself, right? I feel kind of dumb. I wanted to say this, about the polling thing. I mean, right. I should, so Saeed was ahead of her by, 14 points before? And then he barely scraped by, and we're all like, what happened there? Was there perfidy? I never paid attention to the massive undecideds in those polls. I was just looking at the margin, and 33% of the vote was undecided. And obviously it's not reasonable to assume that they're going to break 50-50 or even proportionately. Right.
That's a hell of a undecided.
Yeah, the undecideds were huge in that. I mean, basically, they were so big as to render the polls meaningless.
Yeah, because they could have went either way. 33% overwhelms anything that's in the polling thing.
Yeah. So that's amazing. I think I'm going to be much more aware of that going forward. I'm going to pay more attention because we just look at that plus minus thing, but that's only part of the equation, right? I mean,
true. I got to be honest. I didn't think of the undecideds either. Yeah,
well, me neither. So, all right. Well, now we've been warned.
Exactly about.
I do want to talk about Jason Arday.
Yes.
It's tragedy. He's a 41-year-old professor at Cambridge University in England. He committed suicide over the weekend. And basically he said that he told his friends and his colleagues that he felt hounded. Basically a week ago, it was looking like a pretty clear-cut case of this is a guy who was a fabulist, who made up all sorts of shit about himself, running 30 marathons in 36 days, was unable to speak until he was 12 or 18, depending on how you measure, yet ended up as a professor at Cambridge. All these things. But now things are not nearly so. Oh, plagiarism. There were accusations of plagiarism. And he resigned from Cambridge. He wasn't fired, but it looked pretty clear that he might have been. Cambridge didn't handle this well. They didn't protect their hire. They hired him and they didn't protect him. There's now, because he killed himself, I think a lot of people are feeling pretty awful about this. And I think they should, given the fact that this all was precipitated by this this racist white professor who was fired by Cambridge himself 2 years earlier, and basically was an online influencer complaining, accusing this guy of all sorts of stuff. The plagiarism stuff turns out not to have any evidence behind it. He had been previously cleared. And he just felt badgered and beleaguered and obviously hopeless. And the media pile-on, if you've ever been the center of one, can be a horrific place to be. I guess this to me has a lot of layers to it, which is why I find it interesting. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that Jason Arday didn't really run 30 marathons in 36 days, right? And that he lied about stuff in his upcoming autobiography. Is there a way that Cambridge or the media, I've got to think that there's a way that they could handle this that would not create such a pressure cooker for someone at the center of accusations like this. After all, he's not accused of murdering anyone or raping anyone. He's not in the Epstein class. What's the accusation? The accusation is that he fibbed about his accomplishments. Whoop-de-doo, right? But they went after him, and I think it's credible. Margaret Kimberly said, it wouldn't have been as severe if he'd been a white guy, and I kind of think that's probably true.
Is there a way for the media to do it? It's media. The very act of writing anything about somebody is writing something about somebody, especially at the point where it goes out and people read it and people break immediately on whether or not they believe it or not, in which case it still puts pressure on the person who's the object of it. I don't know another way out of that. You could say that the media should be more honest and they should do more research and they should do more. You could say that.
That's really what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's recently was the head of the center of a media clusterfuck. And in fairness, he's guilty and he did everything that they said.
You're right.
Okay. But the thing is that when you read the articles, there's really only one real article. And then, but if you Google his name, you'll find all these other articles that basically just mined that article. They didn't do their own reporting. They just mined and because, that's what the media does now. They don't do any reporting. So, there you are turning up and, you're the story was originally in one major outlet. And then suddenly, you Google yourself and it's people are reading about you in Pakistan. And it's kind of it just seems wrong. I don't even know if that should be a practice. If you can't do original reporting, maybe you shouldn't be doing any reporting at all.
I've had people report on us in Faultlines. And I remember reading the article thinking to myself, okay, you're attacking me for something, but you're not explaining what I'm saying. And let me guess, they probably never called you. No, they never called me. They were going on a conversation I was having with Mark. And they were basically saying, well, Jamarl was agreeing with Mark about so-and-so. And as I read, I was like, because Mark was right. Right? But you're not reporting my argument. And you're not reporting the argument that is being made. You're reporting the fact that I agree. Basically, you're saying I agree with something without necessarily letting me explain why I agree with it. You're cutting me off, basically cutting off the point. You're making it very constrained in regards to the way that they're reporting it. And I remember doing a thing about it, thinking to myself, if you're going to disagree with me, tell me what you're disagreeing with and tell me why I'm wrong. Don't just say, well, Jamarl said this And oh my God, isn't it outrageous? Like, yeah, but why is it wrong? Right? You're acting as if everybody who's reading the article already has a particular point of view that is against my own, even though you haven't articulated why I was wrong. Because frankly, I wasn't wrong. I mean, it's wild when they write hit pieces like that. It's personally, I felt nothing about it. I was like, just make sure you get my name spelled right. But you can imagine that if that's a pile-on, how much pressure that's been applied to a particular person, especially if they have a fragile or more
Right.
sensitive nature.
Yeah, I'd say if you know someone, and this is to everybody, if you know someone who's at the center of something like this, keep them close and probably don't leave them alone for a while. And it's sort of like, as Dan Savage would say, it gets better. I mean, the hyenas, like I told my friend, like the hyenas will move on. They, you're just, they're just gnawing the meat off your bones right now, but they'll have something else to do later on. And it'll be fine.
Yeah,
but
this is not worth taking your life over.
Definitely not. Okay. Thank you so much, Jamarl. Thank you, Robbie West. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Please stay tuned to the TMI show coming up right now. Oh, and the Q&A show, and maybe a guest and maybe not a guest. But anyway, we'll be back in 2 hours. So see you then.